The boss looked at him again with that malicious expression in his eyes, characteristic of the vulgar thoughts he cultivated. Feeling offended, Sumarokov retaliated. "It's not what you think. It's just a companion." Okay. Sumarokov, I understand, he said, smiling. They all say the same thing. He thought about answering, but decided to remain silent. Oh, what did his boss's ideas matter to him? What mattered was that Katienka was a great companion to him, with whom he shared his problems and with whom they rarely saw each other. This situation had been going on for more than 4 years. Katienka had 2 sisters and a brother and was the 3rd child in her family. Her father had passed away, and her mother was ill. When she went to work, her younger sister, Luisa, took care of their mother and the house. Even if she was absent all day and night, her mother was not completely unprotected. She had grown fond of the Sumarokov household, and her family understood her dedication to the poor children of Arma, especially the young ones. And with the meager salary Iulián paid her, she helped with the household expenses. Everyone believed that one day, Sumarokov would marry her. In the village, the rumors were very loud in the first few months, but then they calmed down. The routine of life, the forced labor, the hardships of the life everyone endured to survive, caused the facts to be forgotten. Despite the difficulties, Katienka learned to read and write, thanks to her own efforts and the goodwill of her father while he was alive. She and her brothers were very grateful for this inheritance they received in childhood, because working so hard would have made it impossible for them to learn anything. While their father was alive, they made the most of the lessons, which were worth their effort, because no one imagined that the Papacha would leave so soon and their mother would soon fall ill. Everything would be settled. The Izba of the enclosure, near the Norobod mansion, was ready to welcome Iulián Sumarokov's family. And, ironically, little Mayra returned after 5 years. She was the same offspring who had emerged from there, violently torn from her mother's lap and abandoned in an old, dirty hut on the road. Norobod believed Sergei had killed his granddaughter, following his orders. No one else on the farm knew what had become of the poor newborn. After the secret, Sergei and Norobod became more united in their cruelties, and the evil overseer ignored the girl's fate. They avoided discussing the matter, because that offspring was a landowner's blood. Norobod never again asked about his granddaughter's whereabouts, and Sergei acted as if everything had gone as he had been told. But now, Norobod was beginning to feel immense desolation, caused by remorse and the constant drinking that undermined his authority over the employees. Sergei was gradually taking control of the situation. Norobod, without the support of his absent son, allowed himself to be dominated by the overseer. He avoided being alone with the foreman ever since his daughter's tragic death. His presence awakened remorse, and he suffered. In truth, Norobod wanted to immerse himself in drink, constantly forgetting his misfortune, his daughter's death, the fate of that child, his own flesh and blood, whom he had rejected because she was the fruit of his union with an unknown mujik. Remorse gnawed at his soul, and nothing, absolutely nothing, could alleviate it. When Sasha's ghost appeared to him stained with blood, he would become delirious, and a nervous fever would attack him as if he were having an epileptic seizure. Indeed, Norobod had become epileptic. Many peasants feared him during these crises, which worsened around harvest time. When the wheat began to turn yellow at any setback, he would vent his anger and order them to be flogged. No one could alleviate his nervous tension. The only person who had any control over him was his poor wife, who sympathized with his plight and remained by his side. Things on the farm only got worse under the direction of Sergei, who was hated by the employees. 15. The Sumarokovsky. The Sumarokovsky brought something to farm that had never existed there: joy. Soon the gentleman, imbued with sadness, was filled with contagious laughter and the hearty games that Katlenka had taught Yelen's children. The children's din cheered up the previously sad and abandoned Izba du Cordero. But before moving, Iulián and Katlenka sat down with the boys and told them about the difficulties and hardships of living on other people's land, and how they would have to submit to the regime imposed by their bosses. It was crucial for them to continue working, which would guarantee them education, food, shelter, and clothing. The children, warned, kept their boundaries, never entering the Norobod mansion. The little ones were constantly watched by Katlenka, because Iulián and Pavel, both young boys, were already helping their father by doing some chores. Norobod granddaughter, Sasha Alexandrovna Norobodviskel, however, broke all ties. A mischievous girl. She preferred to spend more time at the servant's house than at her grandfather's. There she found joy and felt at home among them, despite her strong, scheming, and rebellious nature, like her mother's. Sonia took advantage of her daughter's interest in the Sumerokoviskis to snoop on the intimacy of Iulián's house and, through her coquetry, win him over. She couldn't accept that he, a good and upright man, had escaped her charms. She simply couldn't bear to be despised by any man, especially not by that uneducated peasant. "Sasha, my daughter, where are you?" She entered the izba with this excuse. Katienko was sitting near the furnace, mending some clothes. When she heard Sonia's voice, she answered. "She's playing with Nicolau. She must be so busy she didn't even hear." "This naughty girl never stops," said Sonia, entering. "She likes children because she feels very lonely, so she lets her play." Showing interest in seeing what her daughter was doing, she used this strategy to observe how the Sumerokoviskis lived. Sonia entered the izba. The beds were clean and made up. Did they sleep together? She was dying to ask. Inside, Sasha was playing with a set of sticks his father had brought him from St. Petersburg. The two boys were oblivious to everything, absorbed in their play, seated on an old rug. Their mother watched them, examining in detail the simplicity of the furniture and utensils that made up the poor domestic interior. The izba, since they moved in, had taken on a new appearance, simple and well-kept. Everything there exuded cleanliness and tranquility. A mad jealousy took hold of her, realizing the young woman could work so hard and remain so beautiful, with an innocent and tender beauty. She began to question her, provoking her. "Are you Julian's maid?" The tone of the question was one of superiority, but Katina answered him sternly and humbly. "Yes, ma'am, I am. How long have you been working for Sumerokov?" "Since his wife Anna was about to give birth to Kreslin." "And how long has this been going on?" 5 years. The interrogation continued, and Katlenka, without noticing or understanding the woman's provocative tone or intentions, answered her calmly. "What's your name?" "Katlenka." "And you, what's your name?" "Sonia." Katenka left the needle on the clothes, put on the table, went to the stove, and offered him tea. Sonia, after the long interrogation, learned about their lives. Iulián's life was ordinary, and in fact, it held no secrets, but for her, spiteful as she was, everything seemed new. Moments later, the kitchen filled with noise. Kreslin and Mayra came running in after a cat. They began playing, clinging to Katienka's room, paying no attention to their visitor. "Watch out, Mayra. Watch out, Kreslin." The children didn't even notice Sonia's presence. So involved were they in their own racket, and only after a few minutes, when the cat escaped, did they see her. They kissed Katienka and left again without caring about the visit. "Sorry, ma'am, they're still very young and haven't gotten used to labels." "I don't mind," Sonia said, intrigued by the two children who seemed to be the same age, and asked, "Which of the two is the oldest?" "It's Mayra." They look about the same age, looking at them together. The age difference between them is really small, and, according to Mr. Sumerokov, his wife was breastfeeding Mayra when she became pregnant. Between their two youngest children, there is less than a full year of age difference, and since Mayra is thin and petite, it is barely noticeable. The two women were still talking when Nicolau entered. He was a boy born polite, yet very shy. He politely greeted his visitor with a bow, and his gesture charmed Sonia. Before her marriage, she had associated with educated men from the city, but her association with the ill-mannered peasants had eventually made her forget the pleasant bows the refined men of the capital gave her. "Look, what a charming boy." Nicolau had a very mischievous manner, and, smiling, thanked him for the compliment. "What's your name?" "Nicolau." "Are you Sasha's mother?" "Yes." "Speaking of Sasha, call her, please." Nicolau went to get Sasha. Sonia was pleased. She'd heard some things about that simple but educated family. Only Katienka's beauty wasn't quite right. She couldn't understand how a man like Sumerokov hadn't already fallen in love with her. However, the girl's frankness reassured her about her intentions towards Sumerokov. Katienka considered herself merely a servant and nothing more. Her path remained clear, but any younger woman would always be a threat to her coquetry. Karyenka possessed all the qualities capable of charming men and represented the ideal type for a man like Iulián Sumarokov. Mother and daughter left the izba of the enclosure on their way to the beautiful Norobod mansion, whose garden no one knew where began. And as they passed through the flower-filled wing, Sasha picked some flowers and tore them off along the way. The difference between the two environments was striking. Sasha followed her mother, reluctantly, begging her to let her stay. "Your grandmother is calling. Sasha." Karyenka watched them until they disappeared. "This girl is very spoiled, Nicolau. An only child is a lot of work for her parents, especially when raised with her grandparents." "You're right, Karyenka. Sasha, when she plays, doesn't accept losing and is very nervous. But I get along well with her. It's really good that you get along. Only then can you teach him good manners." The girl put her hand on her hip, smiling. "That's all that's missing, Nicholas. A peasant son teaching his bosses good manners. That's life." The maid grabbed a broom and began sweeping. The important visitor had taken up some of her time. In her time, Iulián would soon arrive. Before, she had spent all her time alone with the children, and now, every now and then, Iulián returned home. His work wasn't far away, repairing fences and corrals. Her workload had increased, and Nicolau helped her as best he could. In fact, he was a boy given to domestic skills, with a very special, delicate manner, different from his older brothers. In the spring, he would go to the fields to collect flowers to decorate the house, drawing criticism from Iulián, his brother. 16 Professor Semyon Andreevsk. Sumarokov's children were enjoying the farm immensely. Their father's constant presence gave them security. As soon as the teacher Norobod had hired arrived, they would spend their time studying, leaving Norobod to fulfill his agreement with Iulián. This was precisely the reason that led Sonia to seek out Sasha, to meet her new teacher. The young teacher had arrived at the farm in a fine carriage, beautifully dressed, with kid boots, glasses, a briefcase, and neatly groomed hair, beard, and mustache. He was an interesting character, completely different from the rough men on the farm. He spoke with elegance and clarity, talking extensively and demonstrating a wealth of knowledge. That young man had charmed everyone, especially Mrs. Norobod, who saw him the salvation for her granddaughter, so badly mistreated by her son and daughter-in-law. He was a godsend. She made sure he felt comfortable, preparing an airy, clean, and comfortable room for him, with a desk and chair near the window, so he could study. Finally, someone there, refined and polite, to correct the language defects her granddaughter had acquired. The young man was talking to Norobod, arranging details of his stay, schedule, time off, and salary. His name was Semyon Andreevsky, and he was from St. Petersburg. Sonia had also come from there, and was more excited than ever about the arrival of the new guest. She immediately set about preening herself, and when they were introduced, she displayed such gallantry that even her father-in-law was puzzled by his daughter-in-law's attitude. Semlin, very gallant, pretended not to notice, and soon the two recognized each other in their flirtatiousness. While Semlin chatted with his employers, his dark eyes strayed languidly to the beautiful Sonia, who, pretending to be interested in her daughter's education, remained in the room, participating in the contract. These new characters took away some of the sadness that had settled over the farm since Sasha's tragic death. But the ghosts still appeared, frightening people here and there. Norobod remained tormented by the vision, and his wife remained the same sad woman. When Semlin was informed that he would also have to educate the children of the mujik Iulián, Norobod had to double his salary. It involved educating 4 children of different ages, and he was very meticulous. Norobod had no other option but to accept the young man's demands. In fact, Norobod cared little about his surroundings. He was only interested in drinking, and each day his insanity grew, burdening his wife with decisions that concerned him. The next day, classes would start. Sumarokov tried to do his best at work to earn the privileges he had won for his boys in those difficult times of servitude, when most of the peasants had no rights, especially those who worked in the wheat and rye fields. Iulián clearly realized that Sonia, although still interested in him due to her provocative glances, now showed a great inclination towards the professor's singular figure. She didn't interest him. It was nothing more than a physical need, in which his heart didn't even participate, and he rejoiced in being free of her blatant pursuits, now extended to Professor. Sumarokov entered the house, and Katlenka was standing by the stove. During all those years of struggle and suffering, he had not had time to perceive the beauty, the girl's simple and rustic appearance. Or perhaps he hadn't even stopped to observe her better. And for the first time in so many years, he noticed her two serene, dark eyes. Was it the closeness of both of them, living together in that new home, that was causing this new sensation? The fact was that Sumarokov held her in high regard, as if she were his daughter or younger sister. And what good would it do him to be interested in her? What would such a young girl want with a mature man like himself, with a host of children? He was ashamed of his sudden interest, but he couldn't help but admire her beautiful eyes, and every time his met hers, he became embarrassed. It was as if he were seeing Katienka for the first time. He stopped to get a better look at her. The girl, distracted by her chores, didn't even notice that she was the focus of so much attention from this simple, kind man to whom she held such special affection. Sumarokov became deeply interested in the girl. In fact, he didn't realize he was liking her, now in a different way, despite all his respect. He was dying to ask her about boyfriends, but he was shy. Katienka and Mayra slept in the same bed. In fact, they all slept in the same room, separated by a curtain, that is, a bedspread with pretty, colorful patterns. 17, the ghost again. One night, they woke up, startled by Mayra's screams. The girl was crying and had a fever, a very high fever. Katlenka hurriedly got up to help her and give her something to drink. Katlenka, Papachai, saw her. She was here, I'm scared. Who, Mayra, who? Katlenka asked her, not understanding that the child was seeing a spirit. I don't know her. She's coming to get me. I can feel it. I'm afraid I won't go. She's got blood on her. The girl stammered, sobbing. Terrified, she nestled into the girl's arms. Iulián Sumarokov immediately guessed it was the ghost of the farm that had come to visit his little girl and tried to calm her, asking her not to be afraid. He wouldn't hurt her. I'm afraid. The girl cried. 16, trust in your Papacha. Papacha won't let you go with her. Don't be afraid, Mirachka. The other boys also woke up, and Iulián asked them not to get up. Calm down, nothing happened. It was just Mayra's nightmare. But no one could sleep the rest of the night, and, with great difficulty, in the early hours of the morning, the girl fell asleep clinging to her nanny, trembling and sweaty. Yes, he had no doubt. It was Mayra's mother who had emerged from the grave to see her daughter. Her spirit couldn't keep frightening people like that. If the ghost continued to appear, the superstitious peasants would soon leave the farm. And if the teacher, the town's little bowtie, also saw her and was superstitious, he would be the first to leave. How would his children manage to study? That depressing ghost had to find peace. Iulián had once cultivated some superstition, but since his wife's death, he had grown accustomed to living with his solitude and not fearing the spirits. Sometimes his longing for his wife was so great that even seeing her in spirit satisfied him, and he even prayed to God for her to appear to him. The next day, the teacher and students discussed a fantastic event. The children couldn't contain themselves hearing stories about spirits, and their imaginations took over. And when they learned that Sasha, Sonia's daughter, already knew about the ghost's existence, the incident took on a new dimension, and they now peppered the girl with questions. They couldn't forgive her for having hidden the story from them. 16, diminutive of Mayra. N, of the spiritual author. Knowledge of the ghost. Sasha explained to them. My mother asked me not to comment, saying that her spirit would not harm me, as in fact, it never did. It is the ghost of my Aunt Sasha, who only appears to frighten the wicked and lazy peasants of the countryside. I have nothing to fear. Did you know her, Sasha? Yes, Professor, but I don't remember. I know she was very pretty and kind, and she used to appear before everyone at the harvest festival my grandfather throws for the peasants. Really, Sasha, did you see the ghost? Sasha, embarrassed by the question, because she herself had seen nothing, explained. No, Mr. Semyon, I saw nothing. Good grief. He is well. They relaxed a little, aware that the dead woman only appeared to the wicked Mujuks. They were catching their breath for new questions when Pavel asked, unconvinced, how, then, could Mayra have seen her? Sumarokov's children were astonished. This ghost couldn't be good, since their sister had been afraid and had fallen ill because of it. Semlin first listened attentively to Sasha's stories, then to the spirit's new appearance to his student's little sister. The boys were thrilled with the teacher's attention to the subject. The teacher was genuinely interested and quite intrigued by what he had heard. He took advantage of the class break and went looking for Mayra, accompanied by the students. The wooden hut stood near the Norobod mansion. A path lined the two was lined with fragrant acacia trees and a few beds of sunflowers, brightening the landscape with their vibrant colors. Katlenka was washing clothes when she noticed a well-dressed, elegant young man approaching. Unaccustomed to strangers, she blushed with embarrassment, impressed by his well-kept clothes. She had seen him from afar the day he arrived at the farm. "This is Katlenka," Pavel introduced her, "and this is our Izba." Semlin thought she was too young to be the mother of his students and looked questioning, which Iulián immediately guessed and explained to the teacher. "She's our friend. She takes care of the house." "Ah, well, how are you, Katlenka?" "I'm fine, thank you." "Are you the teacher?" "Yes, Semlin Andrelovich, your servant, madam." The young man bowed deeply, taking her wet hand, increasing Katienka's distress. Although she had been dismissed, she now didn't know what to do under the young man's penetrating gaze. "I came to see how the girl is. I heard something unexpected happen last night." "She's asleep, sir." "Call me Semyon, I beg you, beautiful lady, so you can take me off the pedestal of age." "Excuse me, yes, excuse me." Pavel and Iulián were delighted with Katienka's embarrassment, for Professor Semyon was a very interesting creature, the funniest one to be found on that farm, with his studied and somewhat delicate mannerisms for the place. "My students commented on what happened here tonight. Would you like to call me that, Katia, if you'll allow me?" "As you wish," replied Katienka, becoming more and more embarrassed by the manner of the affected but pleasant young man from the city. "What do you want to know, Semyon? Is it true that the girl saw a ghost?" "Yes. She saw someone who frightened her to the point of being delirious all night with a high fever." The professor had bright eyes and seemed to go beyond the facts, wanted to delve into that unfathomable mystery. "When I wake up, I'd like to talk to her, because this fact interests me." At Katienka's questioning look, he continued cheerfully, as if he knew exactly what he was looking for. "Don't worry, Katia. I'm a student of supernatural forces, and perhaps I can help you." "She's better now. She's fine," argued Katienka, wanting to spare Mayra from the stranger's curiosity.